One of the things that I did when I became responsible for the shack and trying to establish who the initial membership was going to be is I asked a school board member to be a member of the shack. I also had my assistant superintendent and my superintendent were advisory members of the shack, and so they were there during most of this 2.5-year process of reviewing sex ed programs. The superintendent and the assistant superintendent, of course, have a great amount of knowledge as far as what's going to work or what's not. The school board member was very valuable, and knows the rest of the school board well enough that he could say, this is going to be an issue, you need to find answers to this, you need to address this when you present to the school board. So I think having those kind of people on our shack where we could take care of any potential issues as we went through the process was invaluable. The actual process then, getting on the agenda, was easy. The superintendent had been in there. They knew exactly what we had been going through, what we were going to recommend. It was just a matter of asking and saying we're ready to present. Again, by having those people in there and having all that background work done, when we went to the school board, it was a relatively easy sell to present to them. And we're very fortunate with our school board. So. We kept all the emotion, all the opinion out, and just provided facts. This is what's going on. This is why we think it's important to have a sex ed program, and we let the facts speak for themselves. And I think it sold everybody. They felt the same urgency as we did. I did have a couple of other shack members available if the board had questions. I wanted to make sure I had some parent members of the shack there so that it wasn't me as a school district employee making a recommendation. It was me representing the shack making a representation or recommendation. But I did have a couple of parent members available. I had the high school nurse available that night, so if there were any questions about what the parents in the community might think or what is going on with pregnancies in middle school or high school, they could all answer those questions. I was very nervous about this presentation, and there had been a lot of background work going on between school board members and some of the local communities, some of the churches, a lot of questions going on the week leading up to the school board meeting. And so I was expecting a very large crowd, and it could have been pro, it could have been con, but I was expecting a large crowd of people that had some concerns. Knowing some of the background trafficking that had been going on, I was expecting a lot of tough questions from the board. I think having the presentation with the facts kept a lot of that down, and what ended up really happening, they had a few questions for me, but there ended up being more discussion between 2 or 3 of the school board members than there were questions and answers going back and forth between me and board members. And most of that, we had one vote that was against the program, and he told us, I think during the vote or right before the vote, and he told me personally afterwards, he says, I'm not voting against you or against the program. He said his concern was that he thinks that sex ed ought to be taught at home. And he was just kind of making a point with that vote against the program. And he says he was glad that they did it. He understood that not every kid has parents at home that are going to talk to him about sex ed. He was just trying to make a statement. So it was actually a very easy presentation to the board, much easier than I anticipated. So I think it all goes back to, the stronger your shack is, the easier that presentation is going to be when you take that to the board and say, this is why, this is what the shack recommends. Because the shack is, by definition, or by law, it has to be more than 50% parents that have kids in the district that are not employees of the district. And they are an advisory council to the school board. And so, you need to have the right people there. Otherwise, you take it to the board have a recommendation, the board trusts you and adopts it, and then you find out that most of your community doesn't think the same way as the shack does, it's going to backfire on you. So I think if you have a shack that's got a good mixture of your community, you're going to be in good shape.